Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, how do you cross a troll bridge in Middle Earth? You use JRR tokens. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at fairies and magical creatures from Forbidden Games.
We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review.
In Fairies and Magical Creatures from Forbidden Games, 2 to 4 players take on the roles of various fairy folk enthusiasts as they attempt to create the best, most magical garden and score the most victory points. The game board has 5 fairy folk areas. You have the Fae, the Trolls, the Earth, Nature, and the Beast zones, as well as 5 various action zones that you will utilize throughout the game. Each player is going to take 4 starter cards in their color for their starting deck, and players will also take a player board they will place in front of them with a scoring marker at the beginning space. Players will also place the deck of cards beneath them and fairy cards out equal to the number of players plus 1. Now, also, you'll go ahead and you'll draw a number of tiles from the tile bag. You'll place those out there as well. This will be the tile offer. Above the board, you will have 5 tiles that will match the various fairy folk spaces on the board. Now, on a player's turn, they will take an action and play a card, and the other players will also be able to take that action, but they won't be able to play the card. Now, the first action you can take is Gain Trust. Essentially, you can take a cube of your color and place it in any one of those 5 zones. Now, you're trying to essentially have area control here so that you can claim that tile and win that zone. So after you would gain trust, then everybody else will have the option to play trust, but critically, again, you can play a card and they can't. Now, the next action you can take is build a garden. Essentially, you can go ahead and grab one of the tiles from the tile offer and place that on your board, then play a card. The other players can simply grab a tile and place it, and then you essentially draw more tiles to recreate the tile offer. You can befriend a fairy, meaning essentially you can take one of the cards from the tile offer and put it into your discard pile. Everybody else can go ahead and they can likewise draw a card. Then you recreate the tile offer. You can then play a card from your hand. Again, no one else can. You can do the helping hand action. Essentially, you can play a card from your hand, and then everybody else does get to play a card from their hand, but then you get to play a second card from your hand as well. Now you can call fairies. When you call fairies, you can discard 1 card from your hand, and then you can draw your hand back up to 5 cards. Everybody else can do this as well, but again, you can play a card on your turn. No one else can. Now, when you're building your garden tile, as you place the tiles on certain spaces, you may get certain advantages. For instance, you may be able to immediately score some points. You may be able to place one of your cubes into one of the fairy folk zones. You may be able to draw your hand size up to 5. Critically, you're looking to score points. Now, how you do this is you have to have pathways. Now, each of the tiles on one side is a pathway, on one side is a garden. You have to place pathways. Now, pathways don't score you anything themselves, but all of the tiles that you want to score have to have at least one square orthogonally touching one of the pathways. So you have to put pathways out in order to build your gardens off of them in order to score points. Now, as soon as you place your 10th cube in one of those fairy folk areas, you immediately win that area. What that means is you can go ahead and take the tile from the top of the board and place it anywhere on your board. Now, the tile itself does not score points, but what it does do is it allows you to score double points for any tile that is touching it. Now, the game ends in one of 4 ways. First of all, if one player has put all of their kinship tokens on the board, they don't have any more cubes, that immediately signals the end of the game. If no more tiles can be drawn to create an adequate number of for the tile offer, the game ends immediately. If no cards can be drawn to create an adequate card offer, then the game ends immediately. If all 5 of the fairy zones, their homes, if they have been claimed and all the tiles are gone, then the game ends immediately and you go to scoring. First of all, you're going to score the fairy folk homes, the zones there. And essentially, what you're going to do is the winner is going to score 1 VP for every cube in there, meaning not just cubes of your color, every cube in there you get a VP for. The second place person, they're going to score VPs just in their color. Now, on your garden, each tile square will score 1 point if at least one of the squares of that tile is adjacent to a pathway. Any plant tiles that are not adjacent to a pathway do not score at all. Any plant tiles that are adjacent to fairy homes, they score double. So players are going to go ahead, they're going to add up all of the points that they've scored, and whoever has the most points wins. Fairies and magical creatures. So this game is from Glenn Drover, the designer Glenn Drover, and Glenn has just made some fantastic games over the years. Some that are really in my wheelhouse. I remember he did like the Napoleon in Europe and the American Civil War, great war games that I absolutely loved. And then later he did the Napoleon Victory and Glory, which was a lot of fun. Most recently, too, he came out. More recently, he came out with Mosaic, which is one of the best civilization building games ever. It is amazing. If you haven't played Mosaic, go play Mosaic. But he's also come out with a lot of these games that I don't typically think are kind of the games that really appeal to me. For instance, Lizard Wizard. The idea was, oh, okay, anthropomorphic animals, not my favorite, whatever. And I ended up really enjoying Lizard Wizard. And I kind of felt that way here about this fairies and magical creatures. It was not a theme that really appealed to me, although I must confess the artwork here is just outstanding. It is so beautiful and so good. It's like you're putting this kind of art in a board game? Really? I mean, wow. This is just great. It's so beautiful. I love the artwork here. It's a huge, huge draw for me. But the theme overall, like I say, fairies, take them or leave them. But I started playing the game. I played it with Kim. Just played the 2-player game with Kim back and forth. There's this deck building element here, which is very interesting. But there's an action to get your hand up, which is also quite interesting. So it's not quite just like a regular deck builder. You play through your deck, you reshuffle. There's a little bit more here to it than that. And it's hard. It draws on a lot of elements because I say it's a deck builder, but it's also an area control game, and it's also a polyomino tile placing game. So that's so there's a lot of stuff here going on. There's a lot of different kind of mechanisms that are balancing here for play. Kim and I, we played this. I think it was on Christmas Eve. We played this that first time, and I kind of going into it kind of didn't know what to expect because, as I say, I'm always a fan of Glenn Drover, and I'll always give him a chance to win me over. But the theme was like, okay, let's do it. And doggone it, he got me again. This is a really fun game. Again, it's a pretty light game. It's a really light game, frankly, and it's not a terribly long game. But there is some real choices here that I like quite a bit. You've only got those 5 actions, and yet there's so much you want to do, but you can only pick one of them. But one of the things I really, 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 really like here is the idea of you choose an action, and then everybody else gets to do that same action. And the only difference is you get to play a card, no one else does. But that's cool because you think to yourself, I'm not just deciding what I can do this round, what everyone else can do this round. So there's some danger in there, and you really have to consider it sometimes. Do I want them to have access to this right now, or do I want to give them an action they can potentially do the same action and just double what I'm doing? So that's a real consideration here, and you really kind of have to think about that a bit. I really like the tile placement aspect of the game too, where you got the choice of, well, I kind of want to do this here, but do I want to cover up this? Because if I cover up this, I'll get some of these other advantages, these short-term advantages that can really help. I really like that quite a bit. And the cards themselves have some really fun and interesting abilities, and there's some meanness, there's some take that there, which I really liked. But I really like too the scoring with the zones where you're trying to score, you're trying to gain control of one of these zones, but if you try and you fail, your cubes can be used against you. And there's ways to try to get them out after that, but it's a very, there's a lot of tension there about trying to claim those fairy homes. and I really like that quite a bit. On the whole, this is just, frankly, an outstanding game. It's a simple game, it's a light game, easy to learn, easy to teach, and packs a big punch. It's a lot of fun. So, recommendation for the discriminating gamer for fairies and magical creatures is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history, fun things like that. I even post some of my lectures on that channel. It would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe to that channel as well. Also, please leave a thumb for us on Board Game Geek for this video. That helps us out a lot. And if you really do like the content we bring to you here, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. You know, my last Valentine's Day felt a lot like a fairy tale. Grim.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love the
I stand firm in the belief that Star Trek The Next Generation is better than the original series any day of the week.